Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual chapter, IMDHA's chapter on the air, on the internet, online for your listening and participating enjoyment and pleasure. We are so happy to have you with us. We are just a minute away, or a minute after the IMDHA conference that was here in Orlando, Florida, this last weekend. And of course, Karen and I were both there. Karen, my co-host. I am Michael Watson, of course. And Karen, introduce yourself.
Hi there. I am Karen Hand out of Chicago. Good to see you.
Yeah. And it was good to see you, Karen, out of Chicago, here in Orlando, Florida, last week. And I understand you also went to Tarpon Springs and had a great time up there afterwards as well.
Michael, I loved Tarpon Springs. I loved the fact that it's an old Greek fishing village and they've kept it the exact same that it was in 1948. I come from Chicago where everything is huge, and in Tarpon Springs, everything is low rise. And it was such a community environment. I loved it, loved it, loved it.
And did you get to the sponge docks?
I got to the sponge docks. I got sponges, came home with sponges, and went on a dolphin cruise. Had a little encounter with some dolphins. That was a blast, yeah. And went to the sponge factory, which of course you should do while you're in Tarpon Springs.
Yes, one should. And as a matter of fact, Tarpon Springs was the sponge capital of the United States in its prime. Of course, sponges aren't made out of sponge anymore.
Oh, the ones they sell at the sponge factory are definitely sponge.
Oh, yeah.
And I learned a lot about it. The ones that we get commercially here have chemicals in them and all sorts of weird stuff. And the ones they get out of the ocean are nice, and they don't, bacteria doesn't set up in them if you treat them right. And it's just a wonderful thing. So yes, I have all new cleaning and scrubbing sponges. Lovely ones for my face and my body. It's a great thing.
How is that? How is that? So, how announcements wise, I think there's one thing that I have that's next month. Do you have anything, Karen, for this month that's coming up?
I have not. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I am doing a 4-hour workshop for HT Live 365, and we've knocked around a couple of dates. One of them is May 21st. Now, that'll be in just 2 weeks. But we also might do it in June. So we're going to finalize that today. We were not able to hook up. We couldn't all get together. So we'll be doing that in the next couple of days. Here's what I will do for you, Michael, if you don't mind this. When the date is finally finalized, because it's likely it could happen before our next virtual chapter meeting, I'll put it on our Facebook page so that you'll know.
That'll be great. The only thing I have in the next couple of months actually to announce is June 27th and 28th is the board certified hypnotist weekend. So we have essentially a weekend program that people can go through in order to qualify for a BCH. And basically what it covers is the truth of the matter is board certified is an honorarium, if you will. So what we really want to do is we just want to make sure that the people have an interest in having that, have displayed some advanced skills above and beyond the minimal requirements, of course, that all hypnotists are expected to do in order to become certified, and and that they're up to date and they get empowered with some of the latest and grooviest techniques that we can possibly find. It's a wonderful weekend, 2 days online. 10 a.m. till 5 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, right here on Zoom. So if any of you have an interest in that, we hope that you will join us for that. You can get more information about it at the IACT website. IACT.org or imdha.com will be sources of information for that.
One of the things I'll be teaching in my workshop that I talked about was how hypnosis happens with your eyes wide open, wide awake. Accidental hypnosis, how it happens in the wild. And clients put themselves into trance all the time. If you're not board certified, I really, really, really recommend that you get board certified. And you can't do it with anybody better than Michael, of course. But the board certification, not only does it make you feel good about your skills, it is a great thing to elevate your status with everybody who is looking for a hypnotist. The American Medical Association has spent a boatload of money convincing hypnotizing the American public that board certification is an important thing to look for in a doctor. Since they have made board certification such an important thing, if you're looking for a way to set yourself apart from somebody else in your town or your area, if you put on your website that you are board certified, it is going to give the impression, whether it's real or not, real or imagined, it will give the impression that you have a higher status or more credentials than your competition. Why not add that to your credentials and let them, like my friend Bob Burns says, when it comes to suggestions and people taking them, some will, some won't, so what? Why not serve the people who want to take that suggestion of somebody more qualified? And there it is. Board certification will do that for you.
Lovely. And I sincerely promise that if you take the board certified program from me, something is going to happen over the course of the weekend that you have never seen before. And, and so hopefully we will pad your toolbox with some new and exciting things. So it's always a wonderful thing. It's my favorite class, to tell you the truth. I do the stress management course. I do the master trainer program as well, and I love them. I love them all. They're all great. But what I like about the board certified is it doesn't have a specific. What I want to say, the curriculum isn't like knocked out. You got to have this and this and this and this to get through it. It evolves, and it just becomes a fascinating kind of experience of learning in a group of people that are growing and moving forward. So I really like doing this one. So there we are. Everybody,
as far as announcements go, we have HT Live coming up in July. We have Mid-America coming up in October, and the Canada Hypnosis Conference coming up in Toronto in the last weekend in October. So if you're up north that way, think about putting the Canada Hypnosis Conference on your schedule.
There you go. I think I need to add that to my calendar for, I don't know about this year, but maybe starting next year or something. I'm making some changes. All right. So I hope everyone is doing well. You're looking lovely. It's great to see you all. Do you have anything else that you want to put in here, Karen, before I take off on a
I do not. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, and Kimberly as well. So let's move forward.
Yeah, well, and speaking of Kimberly, we have Kimberly Beer here. I'm going to introduce her in a little while, and I'm really looking forward to what she has to share too. And I hope that our promotional material didn't throw people off, because we gave it the title Horse Sense for Hypnotists, and it's because she actually has two topics, and one of them has to do with horses, and the other one has to do with business building and work for hypnotherapists as well. So we're going to talk about both of those things, and a double header. How cool is that? And so then to start out, what I'd like to share with you is just a little feature on something. It came up in phase. It's a process that I've sort of brought up on a number of occasions with different groups and things, and I really like it. It comes from neurolinguistic programming. But what really brought it to a head was a post that I saw on Facebook about a week ago in a hypnotherapy group. So like you do, and this particular hypnotherapy group, I'm paused for, okay, good. This particular hypnotherapy group, somebody asked the question of, how do you handle, I'm trying to think exactly how they said it, how do you handle negative comments, and then the question was a little bit longer than that, and later on it referred to it as negative criticism. And I realized, first of all, that there's a significant difference between criticism and negative comments. Hopefully. Now, sometimes they overlap. There's no question about that. But on the other hand, the thing that surprises me, and I don't know why it surprises me, because I got to admit, I'm not necessarily pretty good about people getting up in my face and telling me what's wrong with me, and particularly when it's uninvited, that kind of criticism doesn't seem to be particularly helpful. And yet, one of the things that NLP is founded on is this notion of curiosity. You have this option when you get some sort of a criticism to push back, to deny it, to resist it, to argue against it, or to try to explain yourself, or any number of ways that it can go. Or you might actually wonder, now this is going to be revolutionary, I hope that you're ready for this, you might actually wonder if this criticism could be useful. What a concept. So here I am in Florida, and just about a month ago, I guess it would be, we had a weird vantage point. My husband was in the hospital, so the weird vantage point was we got to stand in a window on the 10th floor of Florida Hospital, looking out over the eastern sky as we watched a rocket launch to the moon. Wonderful, wonderful thing, and beautiful, just perfect sight line from where we were and everything else. The thing about that rocket launch to the moon that continues to just amaze me is, and I wonder if you know this, a rocket on the way to the moon is off course 99.9% of the time, or a number very close to that. Right? And it goes, and then they get some information. They're reading the instruments. Where are we now? Are we on track? And, and somebody says a little to the left, and they, they make the adjustments, right? And then they calibrate, they read the gauges and things again and go, oh, it's still a little bit off. Okay. Another adjustment, a little bit off, another adjustment, a little bit off, another adjustment. And it's about making adjustments all along the way. That's how you get there. Now, the interesting thing is those gauges, I think I'm blurry. Oh, there. I've just gotten clear. The interesting thing about those gauges is that they are providing continual feedback about the position of this rocket or capsule as it becomes while it's on the way to its destination. When we are trying to pursue our goals, whether it's our goals with regard to building a practice, or whether it's a goal that we might have in our own personal life about something else, hopefully, if we learn how to read the signs, the universe continues to give us instructions. One of the things that I think is cool, somebody gave me a definition of neurolinguistic programming a long time ago that I thought was really kind of cool. They said the way that NLP works is step 1, start. Step 2, go until you get there. And step 3, stop. Which is, by the way to accomplish anything. Any goals you got, think about it. Start, go until you get there, stop. That's all you need to know. Except that while you're doing the go until you get there part, you need to pay attention. The same way that you do when you're in your car and you've got your hands on the wheel, right? You're making adjustments moment by moment by moment the whole way. And hopefully you've got some good sources of information that are not just yourself. I think some of you have heard me say this before, but you have to have at least 2 points of view, maybe even 3, if you really want to get some good information about what's going on. And so often when we're struggling to achieve one of our goals in particular, obviously we don't know everything that we need to know, or we wouldn't be struggling. So you've got to start paying attention. And when you do promotional work for your business, you got to notice, how does it land? What are the responses that I get from it? Every once in a while, I'm thinking about feedback forms. I mentioned we were at the hospital a couple of weeks ago. Well, since we've been at the hospital, we now have probably about 6 or 7 surveys that we still haven't filled out. Every time I go to the doctor, I get something in my text messages or emails the next day saying, how did we do? What about this? What about this? What about this? They're asking questions because they actually, I believe, now I may be naive about this, but I'd like to believe that the reason they're asking me those questions isn't just to collect paper, but they'd like to find out what would enable them to provide a more satisfying experience to their customers or to, or patients or whatever the case is. So feedback is really important. And I really, really would suggest to you that feedback is the ongoing instruction that the universe continues to give you all along the way that will help you find out what adjustments you need to make in order to do that. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because immediately it's funny, until I mentioned that feedback could be useful in this developing thread that was on Facebook, there were about 20 people that had commented, well, if somebody says something to me that I don't like, I just don't listen to them. Or if I'm like, well, great. But guess what? That isn't going to be helpful to you. I had a trainer once, honest to God, a trainer who said to me, when I'm teaching people something, I tell it to them once. And if they don't get it, I tell it to them a second time. And if they don't get it then, well, I guess that's just their problem. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting. But if your goal is to be understood, which is sort of what I thought, I'm not just up here talking because I want to make a lot of noise and hope it's okay with you guys. It is, that I'd like it to get through, right? So the ability to be able to receive feedback is important. And by the way, now, and particularly in these political days in this country of ours, I find whenever I post something on Facebook, it doesn't matter what I post. If I post something on Facebook, I need to be ready for somebody to jump out of the woodwork and give me a hard time about it. If you have an opinion and you voice it in public, it's almost an invitation in the current climate for give me feedback, right? And quite frankly, the feedback isn't as polite or useful as it could be. But to make those distinctions is a really, really important thing. So there was a process that was developed by Stephen Connie Ray Andreas in the quite early days of NLP that it's in, by the way, it is in the book, The Heart of the Mind. If you don't know this book, it is, I would say, other than those books that are specifically authored by Bandler and Grinder, this is probably the best NLP book that's out there. The grief and loss pattern is in here, and what else? We have motivation strategies, Connie Ray Andreas's naturally slender eating strategy, working with timelines and overcoming phobias, and all sorts of stuff. It is just the best. It's packed. So, commercial for Stephen Connie Ray Andreas's book, The Heart of the Mind. I really would recommend it. So the way that this process works, best thing that I can do is just describe it to you. Remember that NLP is a modeling technology first. It is not a therapy. It is a modeling technology. It studies things that work and says, how can we make these things available to other folks? So if you want to learn a good strategy for responding to feedback, what you do is you find somebody who's got one. You find someone who is capable of receiving feedback, taking it in, gaining value from it when there's value to be gained, and getting through it unscathed, right? As opposed to whatever it is your client is going to say to you about what happens when somebody criticizes them. And by the way, some of us have in our families or households or our work environment or whatever it is, we have an expert at getting the worst possible responses, out of you, right? So to have something in your back pocket and to automate it, which is what NLP wants to do with it, so that it can be there for you, is really a powerful, powerful idea. So there's kind of there's two prerequisite pieces of understanding. The first one I think I made really clear, and that's feedback is not a bad thing. It's really useful when it's useful. So you need to be ready for somebody, help me do a better job by telling me how I can improve. Now, depending on their delivery and stuff, you might have to figure out how to be able to receive it more successfully. So in this particular strategy, if you were doing it with a client in your office and trying to teach them how to use it, what you would want to teach them about first is the notion of dissociation, which I assume, and I don't want to make the assumption because you know what that does, right? Speaking of feedback, but I assume most of you have a good idea about what we're talking about when we talk about dissociation. As a matter of fact, Milton Erickson says hypnosis is a dissociative process. So it's kind of in the definition of the way that we think about what we're doing. But it's about that ability to step back when whatever it is going on and look at it from a distance, right? To look at it from a different perspective. When you see yourself For instance, the simplest definition is this. Imagine that you're standing in the wonderful magic kingdom. You just walked through Cinderella's castle, and you get into the entrance to Fantasyland, and right in front of you is a carousel, right? And if I were to say, picture yourself on the carousel, you would see yourself on the carousel. The carousel would go around. You would disappear behind the back of it. You would stop seeing yourself for a moment. Notice. And then it would come up, and there I am again, right? And you're seeing yourself. If I were to ask you to imagine being on the carousel, that's a different experience, isn't it? Then you're on the horse on the carousel or whatever it is, and you're going up and down and riding around. And certainly we're talking about horses, Kimberly. Going up and down on the horse, et cetera, et cetera. So dissociation is really important, because when you dissociate, you can leave all of the emotional stuff over there. You're just looking like a fly on the wall at something that's happening to someone who seems to be somebody else. Okay? In the responding to criticism strategy, if you're going to teach this to a student or to a client of yours, it's a good idea to have them first learn the whole thing dissociated, to have them imagine, to see over there themselves, just to see themselves on the other side of the room or whatever it is in a neutral environment. And then to think of a time when somebody criticized them, or some criticism that they anticipate could be coming up, or whatever it is. And to see it happen over there to that self on the other side of the room. So the person comes in and gives them criticism. Okay, says something, whatever it is to them. The second step in the strategy is immediately upon hearing the criticism and knowing that it's criticism, if you have an internal alarm set up that goes, beep, beep, that would be great. That when you hear the beep, beep, that you automatically dissociate. When I think of this in my office, I have my students in my classes or a client that I might be working with to be sitting in the chair that they're sitting in. And I will offer them some light little criticism. I'm not really going to bash them in my office. That's the advanced, they have to pay more money for that. But I'm going to give them some criticism. And what I have them to do is to stand up and to get behind the chair. And to witness this as though I'm just talking to them that's in the chair down there. And it's not actually them. They're just watching it happen. So they can take in the data without having to process it through the emotion. So they take in the data, and then they need to come to some understanding about, is there some value in this data? What are they saying to me? And if what they're saying is something like, well, your presentation was just entirely unorganized. By the way, that's my own inner voice right now talking to you. Your presentation was entirely unorganized. Well, that isn't really good data yet. No matter, even if it's well-intended, it's not good data because you don't even know what they mean. So you need to get a little more information from them. So disorganized in what way? What could have made it better? You could ask some questions like that if you were in a resourceful enough place to do it. If instead, however, you're feeling attacked, then you're probably not going to be able to get the value out of that communication. So if you can teach yourself automatically when you know that there is criticism coming your way, I have speakers inside of my head that say, incoming. Okay, step back, listen to the criticism, and ask yourself, is this valuable to me? And ask yourself as well, how does this other person see this? If you can visualize what it is that they're saying to you, if you're a visual person, however you might do it, but if you can make some sense out of it, that's really helpful. Does it make some sense? If it doesn't make some sense, you could ask for more information because it may just be that you don't understand, right? There are a number of options that you have at this particular point. Or, by the way, if the criticism was something that you really don't have any use for, or in fact was just negative, or even came out of their own belief systems about, maybe let's say that you say to yourself, I'm going to really build my business this year. And somebody says to you, well, this isn't really a very good year for business. Now, that's not really criticizing you. That's just them bringing their negativity into the situation and dumping it all over you, right? And in that particular case, I think it's perfectly to say, well, I don't feel that way about it. But it's easier to get that way if when you hear the criticism, you can immediately dissociate, do an evaluation of the criticism, and make a decision about how you want to respond. Then you can pop back down into your body and you can say, gosh, I'm really glad you pointed that out to me because I wasn't aware that I had done that. Or you might even be moved, depending on what they're criticizing you about, to say, oh gosh, I'm really sorry. Because maybe it was something that you did that upset or hurt them in some way, and I certainly didn't mean to do that. Or the third response, which Karen has a whole hand gesture for, but the third possible response is, yeah, and you and the horse you came in on. Oh, another horse thing, Kimberly. Right? That sometimes it isn't warranted, and it's perfectly okay. I'm not trying to make saints out of anybody, and if you want to give people hell for giving you inappropriate negativity, it's perfectly all right with me. That's up to you. But the point is, pull out so you don't have to feel bad. Think about it from a dissociated perspective before you respond, and then step back in and respond. Now, the way to install this as a strategy is to think about 4 or 5 different examples, maybe times that people have criticized you or things that you're concerned could happen, and practice it in your brain just a few times. I'm right at the top of my time, so I want to finish this quickly, but I will tell you that having, I know I've said this to many people in this group already, I am a Beatle fan. I know every Beatle track that has ever been written, and all of them are in my phone. Every single Beatle track that's ever been recorded. But when I first learned this music, I got the albums when they came out, and I played them over and over and over again, end to end. And whenever I hear a Beatle track today at all, and it comes to an end, there's a moment of silence, and in my brain, I start to hear the next track on that album. Repetition is a way to automate something. So put yourself in experience of receiving criticism and teach yourself to step out, evaluate, and then step back in and respond. And do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Try it with 6 or 7 things. And the interesting thing is, the next time you're out in the world and somebody says something to you that you understand to be a criticism, the strategy will kick in automatically. That is, you will automatically dissociate. But that'll come as a result of practicing it. So practice, practice, practice. Just try it out. Use it as a little meditation, a mental exercise. It is, by the way, it is also the meta program in action. We start out associated, we dissociate, we evaluate the situation, we gather whatever resources we need, we step back into it and respond. So that is a very fastest version I've ever heard of a description of the responding to criticism strategy. It is better detailed in here. There's also a very old and low quality, but it's out there on YouTube nonetheless, video of Steve Andreas demonstrating this in a hypnosis training in Colorado, or NLP training in Colorado, somewhere back in the 80s. So you can look for it out there if you'd like to see Steve in action. And there we have it. So thank you for listening to that. Now, I was excited about doing that, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Now I am, there we go, looking on my phone because I am about to introduce to you Kimberly Beer, and I've got to tell you, Kimberly Beer is an entrepreneurial wise woman, board-certified hypnotherapist, a master equine gestaltist, and marketing and automation expert who helps individuals and small business owners create lives and businesses that truly support how they want to live. She has over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience. She blends practical business strategy, modern marketing systems, and smart automation with deep transformational work. She is the founder of Be More Business and Live in Synchronicity. She works at the intersection of business growth and personal evolution. She's known for helping clients simplify and streamline their marketing through AI, automation, and relationship driven strategies while also guiding them to shift limiting beliefs, heal past traumas, and step into aligned success. Now, there's a whole lot of there's a whole lot more here, but she integrates mind, body, and spirit, combining real world systems with modalities such as hypnosis and the equine Gestalt coaching method. And she's especially passionate about helping women entrepreneurs build sustainable, fulfilling businesses and supporting individuals in overcoming anxiety, trauma, and self-doubt. She's also a professional photographer, a writer, a speaker, and so many other wonderful things. I'm going to let her tell you all of that. But what I want to do, I was just fascinated when I met Kimberly. She was just recently in the Master Trainer program, and a lovely lady. And what intrigued me was, of course, I want to talk to you about building businesses and automation and all of that stuff, which is so current and and so important for all of us. Except, I am at this stage in the game, and I think I probably mentioned it in class, where I'm not really looking to build businesses anymore. I'm perfectly content with where I am on that regard. So I'm an anomaly in the hypnosis community. Everybody that I know is always saying, how can I do more? How can I do better? And so we're excited to have the opportunity to share them. But I want to start out on the other half of this, because that's what really got my attention, was the equine Gestalt therapy. So, Kimberly, how does somebody get involved in something like horse therapy?
Yeah, there's a long and winding road for you. Um, in my life, I have dealt with pretty severe depression from childhood all of the way through adulthood, and it was not a fun trip. And I had tried traditional therapy, it did not work for me. They immediately put me on drugs, and that didn't function well. Meanwhile, I didn't work well in a corporate environment. I do not have the temperament or the personality to deal with day to day boredom, which is why I have so many diverse things. If you haven't picked up on it, I probably would be clinically diagnosed with ADHD, but that wasn't cool when I was going through this process. So, of course, that never happened. But what I did was I had to figure out how to live my life with depression. And I came up with some probably not so healthy strategies to get that done. And at the same time, I started my own business and I started into graphic design and marketing. I'm really an artist and I am a great photographer. I've had a lot of experience with photographing horses and I live in the rural area. I've never known a day without a horse in it. So I started helping equine businesses market their businesses. And I started working with solopreneurs. I learned how to do boots on the ground marketing, all of that. So in I think it was 2008, I was at a horse expo in Ohio and I was with a client of mine because you said, listen to the feedback, get curious, dissociate. So one of the things with me marketing businesses is that all throughout my career, I get deeply involved with my clients, which is probably not the best way to run a business. I'm going to tell you that. You should never probably make good friends with your clients, but I do. And the client that I had, I gotten to be friends with, and I was helping her sell her product at this expo. And the booth next to us was from Touched by a Horse, which the owner of that organization is called, her name's Melissa Pierce. And she is a psychotherapist who is a pretty much straight up Gestalt psychotherapist who started a certification program because she started to see the value. She was also a horsewoman. She started to see the value of how horses really helped her psychotherapy patients. So she would observe her patients when they came to visit her for their sessions. She had horses. They came to her horse farm. Her practice was on her horse farm. And she would notice that they would go hang out with the horses. And she started to observe some interesting things with the horses, like how horses treated certain people, how they stood, how they came up to or left when that person was in a certain state. She would ask them, like go walk around the property? And she would observe what happened with the horses. And she started noticing how the horses really helped people get back in touch with themselves. And I'll tell a story a little bit in a little bit about really how this works. Like I can work with somebody, I can coach them, I can consult with them, I can do all kinds of things. They won't get the lesson. They spend 10 minutes in a round pen with one of my horses and it sinks in. Like it suddenly they can embody it. They can't believe it from me or any other human, but they can believe it from a horse. Anyway, I got to talking to her because I'm a giant extrovert and she found out I'm a photographer. So I went and take pictures of her horses and she hired me to go document her work. And I witnessed a session, and with tears streaming down my face afterward, I am like, this is the therapy that I've been waiting my entire life for. And I immediately said, would you please work with me? Because I really had just accepted being in a depressed state was just simply who I was. And that I just learned to, like anybody who's in a chronic pain situation, I just learned to put up with it. And it made a huge difference for me. Gestalt is not about talking. It's not about dwelling in something. It's not about dredging all kinds of things up. It's about getting in there, getting it done, working through it. And it's a whole person sort of an aspect. It looks at physical, it looks at spiritual, it looks at mental, it looks at emotional, it takes in the subconsciouses, things. And she is also, she doesn't teach this, but she is a proponent for Ericksonian hypnosis. So she has got a background in Ericksonian hypnosis and NLP. So in the training, those things were incorporated into the training that I took and into what I experienced. Anyway, after I had worked with her, my business started booming. And something occurred to me in that moment to say, oh my word, you know what? When you get the hell out of your own way and you kind of get your head put on straight and you can think better and clearer and you start to clear out some of the trauma and the cobwebs and the issues and your limiting beliefs and unfinished business and all the crap that gets in the way of you growing your business, you quit trying to buy software solutions that are going to run your business for you and you start to be able to really interact with your business. So my business started booming, and so I started helping more and more people. And then I'm like, listen, this is the ticket. If I can help people figure out their technology and their marketing and at the same time address those things that keep them from being successful in their business that have nothing to do with technology, marketing, business plans, finances, all of those things, then I'm on to something. And so I incorporated that. Horses in the equation of this, they are they do not believe in bullshit. They call you on it immediately, and there is a physical presence to a horse that removes you from overthinking things because when you're standing next to a 1,200-pound animal, it's really hard to not be present. Like you, it's just your survival instincts kick in, and you also believe the horse. The horse is not going to lie to you. So I do want to tell a story on one of my clients, a business owner who like she overthinks everything, like constantly, like over analyzes anything that happens. She over analyzes it. And I asked her to step into the pen with one of my horses. His name is Kush, not spelled like the marijuana, but spelled Cush. And that's a common misconception. Anyway, she gets in the pen with him. And a horse does not want to be with a human if we are in our heads. When we're up here, we are in our predator mode. And they are evolutionarily aware that we could eat them. Like that is even though they've been domesticated, we've handled them for years. These horses that I have been born with humans around them. We were there when they hit the ground. We've been there their whole lives. They are benevolent and let us handle them. When a human being is calculating up here in their head, we it's obvious. And if we're in our heart space, we're in a different way of being. And what I work when I work with business owners, they're almost always up here in their head. They're not trying to get in their body and run their business and really feel their way through it. They're overthinking everything. And all of the conscious mind gets to rattling in their ears, and horses don't want to be around you. And my horses, they're in a pen, but they're going to leave you. They're going to be like, listen, Michael, you're weird right now. I don't want to be around you. So they just walk off. And yet, if you will get in your heart space, if you will get in your body, if you will quit overthinking, if you will be present to yourself, they'll come over because that's the energy they want to be in. And what's more is the biggest nervous system in the room runs the show. And their nervous system is so much bigger than ours, then they'll come over and stand next to a client and they get rewarded. The client gets rewarded for that because the horse will automatically start to regulate them. Their heartbeats will start to sync up. Breathing starts to sync up. All of these physical things that horses do when they stand together in a herd to calm each other, that starts to happen with the person that's in the pen with them. Now that person is working through a solution, both physically, spiritually, mentally, subconscious, conscious mind, and they're completely embodied in that. And that's where the horse provides them the incredibly valuable feedback of, hey, this is the state from which you can create change for yourself. So I don't know if I explained that well enough, if you've been around a horse, but there's something to how we can learn how to behave better when we're in a pen with a horse.
Wow. My own memories are, it's been a long time since I've been around a horse, to be perfectly honest with you. But when I was a kid, we used to have, bridle trails and stuff. There were places that we could go, to do just riding, basic riding. But, first, well, I want to back up for a second. I've got a couple questions for you. But the first one I've got to ask, did you say Melissa Pierce?
Pierce.
Pierce.
P-E-A-R-C-E.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we have Melissa Tears.
I know.
Everybody knows
close.
Melissa Tears. We have Melissa Tears. We have Marissa Pierce.
Yep.
Okay. But now we also have Melissa Pierce.
Melissa Pierce. And I'll put her first name is spelled a little strange, but I'll put it in the chat. It's Melissa Pierce. P-A-R-C-E, and the business that I'm certified through is called Touched by a Horse. She has now moved to Canada. She was in Colorado. I took my certification from her, but basically I started out helping her market her company, and I've been deeply involved in promoting equine gestalt from a marketing perspective for good grief since 2009, I think. So, but I've been certified since 2020. So it's
Wow.
it is life changing. And another thing, I've sort of expanded a little bit beyond the horse work as well. I live on a 750-acre ranch, and we are an actual farm here. Like, we grow crops, we have cattle, like we're a sustainable agriculture kind of a situation. But we also have an equal half of pure native Missouri timber, nature, like the whole 9 yards. And that's another thing that I feel like people just don't get enough of. I hosted a day here recently with people who came down to experience it. We don't get good phone signal here. I have great internet now, but we don't get good phone signal. And it's interesting to watch people disconnect and reconnect to nature and what's around them. And the horses are huge catalysts in that, but so are my goats, and so are the chickens. And we just recently put in beehives and and the woods and the animals that are living around here. There's so many lessons that are just, they're absorbed versus taught. And all I can do is be the facilitator and say, here's the opportunity, and they can step into it.
Sure. Wow. Well, first of all, this is something that just fascinates me to begin with. Okay. And part of the reason that it fascinates me is I hate to admit it, I don't know shit about this. Except I've seen some
Yeah.
pictures and I've heard people say a few things, but I hope you'll forgive what is probably a grade school question. But I guess what I'm wondering is, what does Gestalt therapy with a horse actually look like with regard to? Typically, if we go to see a therapist, the therapist is going to say, "What's your problem?" And you're going to say, "Well, I chew my fingernails." Or whatever it is, or I don't get along with people at work, or whatever it is, right? There's a presenting issue, and then there's some kind of interaction that happens between the therapist and the client. So what I haven't heard yet, and I hope that you can make this connection for me. How does a client outcome get connected to this relational experience with the horses, and what does the therapist do?
Okay. So for me, I am basically a facilitator. And I kind of look at my hypnotherapy practice very similar. I'm a facilitator to someone else's experience. My job is to help facilitate that experience to mean the most to that person for whatever it is that they're experiencing. It's not I don't even want to use the word guide. It's more or less, I'm going to open up a space in a room for them to explore in, whether that be through hypnotherapy in their subconscious and their conscious minds, or whether it be in a round pen with a horse or out in the woods in nature hiking. So all I'm doing is opening the door for them. And then I am there to support them as they walk through their own experience. So Gestalt is very much, experiential. It is not a lot of talking. And a typical session, an equine gestalt session, doesn't really, it begins with a little bit of talking. And many times, so I live an hour from most of my clients, and they have to drive here to get to me. And they'll leave Kansas City with what they want to work on mind. And about 80% of the time, by the time they get here, it's not the thing they work on. So they may say, okay, I'm struggling with, my business plan. But by the time we get here, they've thought for that whole hour about this. They get next to the round pen and the horse is there. And all of a sudden, we're talking about their father's expectations of them being unrealistic and then being worried about not being able to fulfill it. And now we're on to something. So, and I do many times people come with, I don't understand this feeling. And this is where the hypnotherapy training really came in handy, is I can help kind of regress through following back that feeling. And then I sort of push back into Gestalt. So kind of use the two things sort of together, but then we'll move into an experience. And that's where the horse comes in. So some people are super comfortable with the horse being in there with them and being in with the horse. Other people aren't. They just are better with the horse observing the situation. And I can tell you, my horses are going to give them feedback regardless of whether they're on the pen side of the pen with the horse or whether they're outside of the pen of the horse. But I'll do anything. I may do we commonly do something called family sculpture, so that 12-year-old kid, that I'll take that person who said dad is a problem, we'll go back and we'll look at their life as a 12-year-old. And I have a round pen with a circular thing in it, and we'll say that's the stage of your life. And I'll have them arrange what their life looked like at 12, and we'll stand in the individual spaces of what all of the people in their life at 12 were experiencing. And then they, through their own, and again, I'm just facilitating it. They're working through all of their own stuff. I'm there with Kleenexes if there's tears. If they have anger, we have a safe way. We have something called a cube that they can go beat the hell out of. And if they need to do it, we have some safety precautions around that. But whatever they need to experience in that process, they can experience it in that process. And if I need to modify it a little bit, I can modify it a little bit, but it's all just a follow the feel and the flow. If they start to lose the flow, I bring back in my stellar hypnotherapy training from Michael Watson and Wendy Isley, and I can help them reconnect to what they're flowing through. And so that's what the process looks like. People do not come here like they come to a typical therapist. Like they're not going to come here week after week after week for a session. What I do tends to be something that they clear up something and then they peel the next layer of the onion. And typically, I work in conjunction with their other therapists. Like they'll go back to their cognitive behavioral therapist or their EMDR person, and they will see that person for 6 or 8 weeks. And then they'll come back here and we'll deep dive into something else. And I go wherever they want to go. Like if they want to get out there, I'll get out there with them. If they it's all up to them. I am simply the facilitator.
I have a question, Kimberly. Why would they ever go back to the other therapist?
So some people need to completely continue to process it. And I will tell you, it is the gift that keeps on giving. As someone who's experienced it, you think you have completely wrapped the bow. And what happens is that experience closes and another one pops up. So then people tend to not want to do like repeated sessions of this, and it may close one loop, but typically that exposes another loop. And as someone who's been a client of Gestalt therapy for over a decade, I can tell you I still find loops. So
Cool. I've never had a horse for a therapist before. I've had therapists that were horses. Oh,
me too, Michael. Me too. I've had the horse's ass as a therapist.
yeah.
But
I have another question, and there's a question in the chat.
there is a
I'm going
question
to
in
give
the
to you in a
chat, yeah.
second too. But I'm also wondering, and I hope this is appropriate. I love horses. It's great, and horses are big and powerful and all of that. I mean, that's all a wonderful kind of part of the mix. I think in this. On the other hand, I'm wondering. You mentioned that you have all kinds of other animals around you. Are there do other animals have this kind of sensitivity, or is this unique to horses?
So I'm going to answer that from my own perspective. And I think that this is particularly unique to horses. And I'm going to tell you why. Not that the other animals don't have something to add. My goats will teach you certain lessons, particularly boundaries. Dogs are another animal that is deeply involved in our hearts. Cats, we any kind of a pet will, and any animal I think has wisdom to offer. But the unique thing about horses is horses on a, and I'm going to get woo woo here for a moment, but on a spiritual connected level, horses thousands of years ago looked at human beings and said, listen, I'll make a deal with you. I will be willing to die for you. I'm going to carry you into battle. And trust me, the last place a horse wants to be is in a loud, raucous environment where they are unable to leave it. Their entire evolutionary survival mechanism is built on being able to flee. And they're in a situation that they know they should run away from, but they're standing there for us. They've fed our bodies, they have carried us, they have been our friends, they have been sources of all types of things. In some way, horses have tied themselves to humanity in a completely different way than any other animal has. Dogs may be man's best friend. A dog will placate you. A 1200, and you can also dominate a dog. Like you outweigh a dog, you can dominate a dog. You cannot dominate a 1,200-pound horse that doesn't want to cooperate with you. Like they will kill you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Cattle are lovely animals, but they don't want anything to do with humans. Like our emotions, our feelings, they're like, yuck, y'all stink, I'm leaving. But horses are like, hold on, poor little human over here. Let me try to help balance your energy. You're out of whack, my friend.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get you into my Zen state. And horses, when they're left completely alone, don't have any humans around, no expectations. They live at a super high Zen level. Like they're super peaceful creatures. And I think they try to bring that to us in a very different way than any other animal does because we have been so tightly connected in our evolution as human beings and civilization. There's a great quote that's, talks about, I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's John something or another, but for every step step, every footprint on the road from barbarism to civilization, there is a hoof print right next to it. And it's the truth. It's this animal has really tied itself to humans and human success. And now we're at the point that I think that they're like, okay, y'all have cars and you've solved the war issue for us, but now we can help you balance your emotions. And while you're at it, can you help feed us and take care of us? So I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I think it goes both ways, but I think horses are more invested in it.
Lovely. Boy, the time is going by so fast, Kimberly, and we do want to hear the other part of your presentation. But there's a question here that I want to give you. It's in the chat room, and it's sort of a couple questions. So I'd rather just read the whole thing to you, and then you can respond.
And I saw it. Yeah, go ahead and read it. But
you did see it. So how have you had clients who fear horses, or have you rather had clients who fear horses attend? And how do you best support them? Also, you mentioned horses pick up on our feelings. How do you assist horse and client through this process?
So on the first part, there are a lot of people that are scared of horses, and there are people who don't think they're scared of horses until they get in the pen with the horse. So we use open fencing. And if they're uncomfortable being in the pen with the horse can do their energetic work through an open fence. They don't need you to be in there with them. We do a safety demonstration that helps people understand how horses behave and what some horse signals are. Being a little kid growing up around horses, you learn how horses communicate. So horses have very distinct signals. As a matter of fact, horses are nonverbal communication experts. And I probably know this much of that much of their language, but it's enough to interpret. And I can look at what their body language is doing, how they're holding their head, what they're doing with their ears, what they're doing with their tail, what they're doing with their feet, and help the client be able to interpret that. As far as assisting the horse, I don't. The horses don't need my assistance. I will tell you, we have about 20 equine on this farm, and not all of them want to mess with humans. I have horses that are in the pen that are like, no, I just don't. And I have other ones that when I have a client coming, they somehow sense it, and the right one will be standing at the gate waiting for me to go fetch it so that they can work with that client. And they'll pick their clients. Like they'll be, that's my client. I'm taking this one. And they'll walk right out of the herd and take that client. But I don't assist them. This is their natural way of doing things. My job is to make sure that my client is safe, and at the same time to facilitate as much contact with the horse as that person would like.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's what when they said how do you assist a horse, I'm thinking horses have their own resilience. Is that what I'm hearing? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And part of Gestalt is part of the premise of my training in Gestalt. I don't know if this is true of all Gestaltists, but our premise is that we hold our clients and our horses capable of doing what they need to do. So I do not need to do any of those things for it. And believe me, it is so freeing as a person who's facilitating these experiences. The client has all the answers that they need. The horse knows what it needs to do. I just need to be there to provide the room and to make sure nobody gets hurt and interpretations of questions are answered.
So you're not going to be on Facebook the night before your client asking people if they know what you should do with a client that has this particular problem.
No. And I don't worry about the problem. I don't worry about what shows up, because I don't need to be worried about that. Now, if I see somebody or if someone comes here and I get the feeling that they need to see someone for suicidal ideation, or I feel like they're going to harm somebody or harm themselves, I am going to make that referral to them. But by and large, no matter what anybody brings here, they don't even have to get into it with me. Like, I don't need the details. They know it. They know it in their body. They know it in their soul. They know it in their mind, and they're capable. And again, part of what our training teaches us is to hold them capable of creating that change for themselves.
Nice. Beautiful. Well, we could talk about this for a long time. Okay. So yes. I really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate you letting me put you on here as a double-edged kind of kind of deal, because there are some people out here who might be chomping at the bit. I got another one in there to to hear what you have to say about marketing as well, because there's HypnoBiz in a Box got a lot of attention at the conference, for example, and one of the reasons I think is that it's this idea of there's so many things that we all have had to learn as they've come along. Not only things like AI, but starting back with how do you do an email merge, et cetera, et cetera. How do you position this and this and this and this. And then there's some folks like you who can help people put together the whole system. And that's what I think is really important. Otherwise, we'll all be studying a million things forever. So this really is a specialty of yours, is working with people, particularly on their practice building.
Yes. And also I do this from the perspective of we all come into this with different temperaments. So another part of what I like to do is to understand the human that I'm working with. I am not a highly organized individual. I impersonate one on occasion, but if I have something that requires me to do things step by step and do it the same way every single time, repeatedly, I lose my mind over it. On the other hand, there are people who need to have that structure in order to be able to really move through the systems in their business. And so part of my specialty has become sitting with someone and helping them ascertain where do they fit in that paradigm between the super step-by-step highly organized individual and the one who has to have a ton of freedom in how they do it. And the truth is both of those systems can be supported by AI and automation. So AI more recently, automation has been around for a very long time. And what my specialties particularly is helping people figure out how can we use a technology tool that will fill in the gap for the thing that you absolutely hate to do. So let's say you don't like, are there introverts in the room? I don't know how many. Okay, I have some introverts in the room, right? Introverts typically do not like to network. They feel small talk is really obnoxious. It's not very much fun for them. And then because it's not fun for them, they don't ever follow up when they get back home. And then they lose. To me, all of the business cards that sit on your table or on your desk at home, those are money that you are never going to realize because you didn't follow up. So instead, let's create an automated system where all you have to do is add a tag, or even better yet, create something that is a behavior that client does or the potential client does. And then they get a follow-up email that you have orchestrated ahead of time. No introvert is harmed in the process, and the client gets connected with what they need to get to come work with you. So that's just one example. There's a million ways that tech can help you be able to fill those gaps in. And that's where, again, the personal transformation work comes into play, because, like I said, I can impersonate an organized person. The problem is I can't maintain it for very long. And I spent a lot of years of my life beating my head against the wall trying to do that. It took the deep transformational work for me to realize that's not who I am, and that's okay. And I'm sure introverts feel the same way. Probably been told all your life, why don't you just speak up? Go out and do it. It's not a big deal. The hell it is. Yes, it's a big deal. So you've got to work with who you are. So that's how my approach to marketing works. And I use tech to fill in the gaps.
Nice. So what is the presenting issue that you're sort of met with most frequently from, say, hypnotherapists that are trying to build their business, for example?
They don't know how to find clients.
Okay.
Would you guys agree with that? You don't know where to find people, don't know how to talk to people, don't know what to say, don't know how to phrase it, don't know how to write content that will attract people into your business. And this is where, while you were talking earlier, somebody's going to think we planned this, but we really didn't. When you were talking earlier about your feedback and the little lesson that you gave, it reminded me of something in marketing that I work with clients a lot on. And that is using a customer interview to learn how to shape your marketing. And it's incredibly impactful, but you've got to be open to the feedback first. So you have to learn where your clients are now, not where you are now. And you have to talk to them in the place that they are. We've all drank, I know you're not supposed to say this anymore, but I feel like y'all are cool. You all drank the Kool-Aid. Like we've already understand what power this process has and how it can be harnessed and utilized. There's another horse metaphor for you. Or horse pun. Can be harnessed and utilized, right? So we know that. And when we talk about it, either we dumb it down too much or we bring it to where we are at the level that we are, right? And we forget that person we were before we saw the first hypnotherapist that we saw. And the trick of the trade is to get back to that person because your consumer goes through this journey. They're in a pain point. There's something up with them, and you have to communicate to them in this very narrow window of when they're looking for the solution to that. And if you don't know the right language or you don't talk to them in the right way, the message never gets heard because you're not talking to them in the language that they're speaking. You're talking to them in the language that you know. So, one of the ways that you can do this is to ask for feedback and to listen to the responses. And I have a handout that I give to pretty much everyone who comes to a class with me about the customer journey. And by the way, I teach a lot of classes. I teach a lot of very low cost classes through an organization called SCORE. And those classes are often offered nationally. If you go to my website, bemorebusiness.com, I think I'm a little lax right now in getting my dates updated, but the classes are listed on there. There's links, you can go find them. I think the most expensive one is like $10. I do not make money from that, by the way, but SCORE does, and I love SCORE. But most of my classes that talk about customer journeys and such, I do hand out to people a handout, which I'm going to give to you guys, and I'll send this to you, Michael, so that you have it and can share it. I don't know how you want to share it, however you want to share it. It's not a big deal. But it's customer interview questions that are specifically designed to help you determine how your customers speak and then to shape your marketing around how they talk. My computer would cooperate. Does that sound like a good thing that people would want to know? Okay. All right. I don't know. Do you have it
Yes.
so I can add an attachment? Oh,
My
you do.
my microphone was muted. I don't know if you can add an attachment on there, but if you can send it to me, I'll be happy to post it with the video when we put it up. But or if it's something you'd like to share that's on your screen, we can do that.
Or
I
if you have
just
a
put it
link
in the
that you,
chat.
yeah.
Yeah, I put it in the chat so people can download it. I will
Oh,
email
okay.
it
Oh,
to
good,
you.
good,
Yep.
great.
And if you want to, I'm going to share my screen right quick. How long do I have, hun?
You have 20 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to just talk for a moment about this because I think it's important. And then if somebody wants to ask me some additional questions. So the answer to the question of what do I think is the most common thing people need to know or want to know is how to get more customers. My most common response to that is really get to know what your customers need from you and what value that you bring to them because that's ideally what you're selling, right? You're selling the benefit. We're not selling hypnosis. We're selling what the benefit, the transformation. And for you to understand what that transformation really means to your clients, you have to start asking questions. And so most of us work typically within some type of a specialty or multiple specialties. So find yourself either a prospective customer or even better yet, a customer you absolutely adore. Do not do this with the process with the customer that you absolutely can't stand. Like the person, when you see their phone number, you're like, oh my gosh, I really kind of want to hide from this individual. Those are not the people that we pick for this process. We want to
Dissociate.
pick, yeah. We want to pick people we really like and that we're excited when they come see us and that we get really good results for because those are our people. And so, what you want to do is run through these questions. Your job is not to fall into being a hypnotherapist. Your job is not to solve it. If you're a life coach, you got to put the coaching cap away. You have to ask these questions from a perspective of learning. And to learn, we have to close our mouths and listen. And one of the things that I think you really need to do is probably close your mouth longer than you're comfortable with. So if you can let an uncomfortable silence go by, a lot of times people will give you more information. So these questions are tell me how whatever it is showing up in your life right now. That tells you where they are in the point of when they would have made a decision or when they will make a decision or what their pain points really are. What does a typical day look like for you related to whatever you work on? This also gives you information about how they language what the problem is. Because what they say, the words they use, and you're looking for patterns here. So do this with more than one person. You're looking for a pattern, and what you see repeating is what you're going to want to kind of glom onto as words that you want to use in your marketing.
Mhm.
What are your top frustrations? That's going to really nail down the pain points. Why do you think you struggle with this? And again, your job is not to solve the problem, it is just to listen because that's going to give you good information. And then what must happen before you seek a solution? And then you'll look back at these pain points and understand kind of whatever feedback to them, what they said to you. But what you're getting here is the thing that trips the trigger. Because that's what we're all looking for in making a client. We're looking for that moment when they can't take it anymore. So if you work with smokers, you're looking for that moment when their doctor tells them they really can't smoke anymore and they're coughing all night. And I mean, whatever it is for that smoker. I was a 20-year smoker and quit. So, I mean, it took a lot for me to seek a solution to that. So it's a problem. You got to figure out where those problems are because then you can utilize that as information on your website, in your brochures, in your sales conversations, etc. What have you tried that didn't work? That gives you rebuttals to be able to position yourself with trust and expertise in their words. And then what would it feel like if this challenge was solved or figured out? Or what would your day look like if it was solved or figured out? And that gives you what they're really truly looking for. So, this little conversation, it can take, and I'll stop my share because you guys have that. It'll take you somewhere around 30 minutes per individual. My recommendation is that you do it over Zoom and that you record it because you have bias and your bias will always sneak its way in there. You will translate for that person what their problem is and you will label it with whatever therapy background you come from. You will label it accordingly. Now you're back in the same place. If you record it, it's not that way. Law dictates you need to tell the person they're being recorded. So that's number one. And tell them you won't use their words for anything except to understand better. Collect yourself. By the way, always ask the same questions of everyone. Otherwise, you don't get good responses out. And then when you've collected 4 to 10 of these, strip out the person's name. You can get transcripts anywhere. There's a great tool called Otter AI. How many of you have heard of this? That like you can talk into it and it will transcribe your voice. Voice transcription, if you haven't used it in the last 3 years, it has come leaps and bounds. It is amazing. It can get my backwoods Missouri accent and actually make it into legible type. So it's really, really good. Otter AI is one, and there's another one that's used for videos. It's called Descript. Um, any way you can get it put into a written text. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go high tech on this thing. Take their names out of it because we don't want to give AI people's names and information. Like anything that's personal in there that's recognizable, strip it out of the transcript. And then give the transcripts to a tool like ChatGPT or Claude and ask it to identify the patterns that you can use in your marketing. Because AI, this is where AI is really good. Like AI is, it's really truthfully just very good at pattern recognition. It's not as smart as we like to think it is. It is definitely not sentient. Um, and but it's very good at that recognition, and it will be able to basically give you a dossier on how your clients talk about whatever it is that you do. Now you have the language and now you have the things that trigger them into making a decision to work with you. Now you can utilize that in your marketing. And they're going to thank you for it because now they can find the solution that they've been looking for. And it works really, really, really well.
Nice.
It's one technique.
I always love having new tools, and there are so many great things out there. By the way, I just want to put in a little plug because you said it about SCORE. If any of you don't know what SCORE is, it is the Service Corps of Retired Executives, and it's associated with the Small Business Administration. That's right, isn't it? Still,
It is, but they're no longer fully funded by the SBA.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why they've gone to charging for their classes. Their funding got cut.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah, but they've been around for, gosh, 30, more than 30 years. I can remember when I was first starting out that they were really useful with regard to a whole lot of things. There are folks out there who aren't, who are retired, and they've got stuff to share, and by all means a great resource. So thanks for even mentioning that.
yeah, and they're an amazing group. I know I have a class coming up in a couple of weeks on relationship marketing, which is a lot of what I've been talking about here. It's a technique, and hypnotists want to have relationships with their clients. Like you're not looking for a one and done. We're not selling a gimmick. We're selling something that is a long-term solution.
Yeah.
And you want to build a relationship because the better you can build that relationship. So another aspect to this is if you're not sold on the fact of interviewing your customers and utilizing their language and the way they talk about things, let me put it in a perspective for outcomes. When you know your clients really well and you're able to communicate to them directly in a way that feels super comfortable to them and that they recognize, they sit in your chair the very first time or show up on your screen for the very first time with so much more trust in you than they would if it was a gimmick or the latest little sales tool. And you build that rapport before they ever come to you and talk to you. They have that trust and feeling for you because they recognize themselves in what you're saying in your marketing. And you can get so much further, so much faster because you speak to them in that language.
Well, so things are changing so fast, aren't they? In terms of just creating and building a business generally. You mentioned earlier. If y'all could see my desk, you would be appalled. Actually, I love this is the beauty of being in front of a camera. But you mentioned the business cards that are all over my desk. Well, actually, the business cards that are all over my desk really aren't potential clients for me. They're people who want me to be their clients, So these are
Yeah.
people that want me to spend money. But you know what? The funny thing is, they're all over my desk because, quite frankly, I don't care about business cards and I don't pay attention to them anymore. And I think are they still a viable tool or
So I'm going to be the old school person that tells
yeah,
you yes.
okay,
Primarily because and now I'm gonna also say that inside of my phone case there's a dot. And I don't know if you've had the
yeah,
dot experience yet, but you
yeah,
can like touch your phone to somebody and your information changes.
mhm,
Here's the thing, print is not all of the way gone. It's a little like it's the myth that AI is coming for everybody's job. There's a myth that print is dead. You have to throw away those business cards. You don't have to ever look back in your phone for somebody's information.
yeah,
So I mean, and I do this. I don't know if anybody else has this little practice, but if there's something I want to come back and revisit, I take a picture of it with my phone, like
Yeah.
a business card. I screenshot things. How many of you actually go back through your phone and look at those? You know
Yeah.
when I do it? When I'm sitting at the airport waiting for my airplane. That's when I go back and look at those things. And what you don't want to do is create that situation in a potential client. Handing them a business card means they need to trash that, or at least they're going to run across it in paper more physically in their face. Those electronic ones tend to get lost. The best thing you can do is get their information and add them to your database and communicate them with them through email,
Right.
or SMS text messaging if you want to get that intimate with it. Email is less intimate than text messaging. People are much less likely to give you their phone number. They will tend to give you an email. They'll tend to give you the first email, will tend to be their fake email. How many of you have an email that you give all the people that you think you're going to junk email from?
Yeah.
We all have that, right?
Yeah.
So your goal is to be so good with your communications to them that they take you off of the junk email and give you their real email. And that's the ultimate goal for that. But ideally, we want their information rather than giving our information to them. But I still think business cards hold a value even in 2026. And I don't think their value is going to go away completely anytime soon.
Kimberly, I've heard a lot lately, people saying that they don't even open email anymore, that email is almost a non-entity at this stage.
I don't know who those people are and how they manage to get through life because I don't know about you, but email is a lot. I think some younger generations communicate differently. They communicate through WhatsApp or they communicate through
Right.
Messenger.
At
To
the IAD conference, that came up all over the place. People saying, I don't answer email anymore. Put it through WhatsApp. I mean, there are all sorts of things that exist now in WhatsApp,
so,
advances
yep.
in WhatsApp.
And so that's just part of the process of fluctuating as to where your customers are. And that's part of how you interviewing them, getting to know them, how they communicate to you, or how they communicate or would prefer to be communicated to. This is an international organization. WhatsApp is a very popular outside of the United States. Like we don't use it here as much as people do internationally.
Yeah.
So if you are in another country and WhatsApp is the primary communication tool, there are ways that you can automate communications. And instead of getting their email address, you want to get whatever their WhatsApp handle is or their phone number, which is generally what's connected to their WhatsApp.
Yeah, they're talking about setting up groups and communities and all sorts of networking kind of things. So I think
Yep.
WhatsApp is something that we need to look at. But I love your idea on the business card because I think how true is that? They're going to, plus, isn't it true that people like to get something? They like to have something, a little souvenir of some sort, and you've given them something.
Well, and another thing I always encourage people to do is never give a person one business card. Always give them two or three and say, especially hypnotherapists, like
Hmm.
if especially when they're leaving your office, like it should be a no-brainer to hand them two or three business cards and say, "Hey, if you have a friend, make sure you hand this off to your friend." That is such a huge thing because that person's going to come to you pre-sold. So it's and business cards are cheap. I've been a print broker since way back. I mean, I started out my career in graphic design and printing. So I mean business cards cost you what, $50 for 500 of them. I think that's what I've been paying. Somebody may be paying a little bit more. I think Canva like charges 75 for 1,000. That is the cheapest marketing you will ever have. Wallpaper the world with those things. Like
Yeah.
hand them out to everybody. I am a business card. I keep the printer in business cards. I have business cards
Yeah.
for everything.
When I first was building my practice in California, in San Francisco, it was all the way back at the day when, speaking of print brokers, where I would go to the printer and I would get a whole bunch of flyers and I would be taping them to the street posts.
Yep.
No internet, no anything then. So we've only got a few minutes left. This is, I hope, a yes or no question. What about direct mail? Do you put anything in people's mailboxes?
So I have clients that do, because here's the thing, our junk mail has gone way down, right? You don't have as much of it as you once did, unless it's an election year, and then you are inundated with political ads. But in a non-election season, you can do a lot of good with a direct mail. If you are in a place where you can get localized, like you can figure out where your clients are. And if you really want to know that information, go to your library and ask for the resource librarian, and they're the special unicorns of the library, and they have access to databases that will tell you where people are. You just tell them, I'm a hypnotist and this is the things that I work with. Can you tell me where I would most likely find these people, what their zip codes are? They have access to be able to answer that question, and when they do, it's a thing. So for this particular profession, I would say you probably will get some people. Traditionally, you can depend on a 1% return on a postcard that you sent out direct mail. So if you send out 100, you will get one client. If you send out 1,000, you will typically get 10 responses to it. So it's a 1% return.
Nice.
Email is about a 2 to 3% return, maybe 4 for click-through rates. People always think people should open every email that you get. They don't. A typical average open rate for most businesses is between 8 and 20%.
Okay. Well, my friend, it has been lovely, and we are already at the end of our hour. It has gone just too fast, so we have to have you back here sometime to talk a little bit more, and I will look forward to that. But we are about ready to ride off into the sunset, and before we do that, I want everybody to know that we will be back in the saddle on June 9th for the virtual chapter for next month, of course. So we hope you'll come back for that. And everybody, if you would like to now open up your microphones, we can send a wonderful wave of appreciation and thanks to Kimberly before we leave. So say goodnight, everyone. Good night, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That was really great. Thank you.
That was fun.
Right. See y'all next month.
Good night,
All right.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.